Hey, Market Chameleons, thanks for joining us today. You're from my living room. My office, D, has been shut down because of a power outage.
Yep, I hear a lot of people lost power up here in the Northeast.
Yeah, no,
my brother lost power. He said, and you mentioned you have a generator, right? That
I do have a generator. It's not a whole house generator, but it does run through my panel, so I can get internet, the fridge. We don't have air conditioning, which is a little bit of a bummer. So there are things we don't have, and I got to fill it up with gas. So it was hard finding a gas station yesterday that had power and could pump gas. So some interesting stuff going on in the McBride household today.
Yeah, you'll have to teach me how to do that.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. Actually, could be something. There's a stock out there, Generac. We could look at that today.
Really?
Yeah, listen. So thanks for joining us, everyone on YouTube. There are a bunch of you on, been waiting. Remember to like us, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, all good stuff. Let me know if you're having any problems with the picture. Sometimes it gets a little fuzzy between Zoom and YouTube Live, but I'm going to put a link out there on YouTube Live that you can come into our Zoom webinar as well, which makes it nice and easy. Everyone's saying hello, D. People.
Oh, hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Tesla AMD. Well, before we get too deep in, why don't I share the disclaimer, D, and you can go through that.
Yep, let's do that real quick. And so Will's going to put up a disclaimer. Basically, it's letting you know we are not registered investment advisors. We're not broker dealers. Well, I think you have your YouTube on there instead of the disclaimer.
Oh, sorry.
Anyway, Will's going to bring that back up. We're not registered investment advisors. We're not broker dealers. We're not telling you what to do. We're just sharing ideas. If you need a professional advisor, then go seek out either a registered investment advisor or call your broker for help. There's the disclaimer, everybody, real quick.
Excellent.
Then we could just get started. I'm going to share my screen again.
Sounds good.
Get back to the pre-market report. Now, this pre-market report, we start here every day. Basically, these are the stocks that are trading in the pre-market hours. You have the most active stocks, the biggest percentage gainers, biggest percentage decliners, and really just lets you know what's going on even before the market opens. Excuse me. And usually what we do is we start analyzing the stocks from just a historical price action perspective. What happens when a stock experiences a big gap in the morning? What tends to happen during the rest of the day after the opening? And I'm going to start out with, I just pick the top gainer on that pops up on the list, and now it's NVAX. And this is, I believe, here's the catalyst news behind the move, and it looks like something related to the COVID-19 vaccine. And we've seen this actually happening almost on a daily basis, where some of these small cap biotech stocks have been popping whenever there's news around the COVID-19 data or studies. So let's just take a look. I'm going to pop this one open for now, just to give an example of going through a price action analysis. And we see here, so this stock here, that's up 22% right now. So here, this is the close, 157.17. Today, it's up 19%. This is 187.98. Here's the low and high in the pre-market, 175.76, 198.50. We see here the bars, and this is its range. So it's pretty volatile. You see already like a very, very big range over there. These are the VWAP bars. So we see the longest VWAP bar right now that's trading between 193.62, 195.35 on 213,000 shares. And down here, these are the catalysts, any news that supports that move. Here you could see these are the minute by minute price action, so minute by minute VWAPs. I'm noticing here that the standard deviation of those minute VWAPs is $5. So very, very volatile in that pre-market hours. And you could see, I'm just noticing here, the bid ask coming out at the end of the minute, it's 75 cents, 70 cents, 80 cents, almost $1 wide when you go minute by minute. Very, very wide markets, very liquid, trading in a pre-market, almost 1 million shares already traded in that pre-market. Let's take a look at the gap history, gap up history. Now, these are, in the last 3 years, the biggest gap moves up in the morning. And let's take a look at them. These are the 12 biggest gap moves up in the morning in the last 3 years. We see the average of them are 25.7%. That compares to 19.6%. So that's close. We see here, I'm just eyeballing here, a high of as much as 59.4% gap up in the morning. After that gap move, let's take a look at what happens from the opening of that gap to the high. So on average, from the open to the high is a 6.8% gain. From the open to the low of the day, on average, it's a 12.7% loss. From the open to the end of the day, it looks like 50-50. Half the time it finishes higher from the open, half the time lower, for an average loss of 3.3%. So that's your 12 biggest gap moves in the last 3 years. Over here, we see that some of them are also with, we're reacting to either the market moving up a lot. So that's been sensitive to the market. Also, a few of them are just company related press releases. There's one right there. I opened up Feb 27 on COVID. Coming out after a big large gap move the next day, we see that it tended to be weaker. Next day, 83% of the time it was lower. You could see here 2 day, 3 day stretch. So it tended to be weaker as a follow-up the days after these big gap moves. I'm going to close this real quick and see. I'm going to take a look at what has just reported earnings. And let's see what's moving in a pre-market. Actually, before we get to that, what I did notice, and we just talked about I'm going to just look at the ETFs real quick, and I noticed silver popped up top, up 3% in a pre-market. And I think that right now is in a pre-market hours, that's trading at a new 52-week high, 24.98. The 52-week range, 1086, 24.25. And we've been talking about it. Well, we did like already 2 or 3 webinars on silver, Will.
Yeah, actually, Chris Marcus just texted me about AG, First Majestic.
Okay. Which is a silver miner.
Yeah.
And, right, Marcus was telling us about that silver trade, inflation-driven trade. So that kind of has been popping up on that pre-market most active list, almost on a daily basis. I noticed. I'm going to take that off real quick.
Hey, D, while you're on the pre-market, Sebastian, who's one of our fine YouTube followers, asked, "Where do I see the pre-market volumes?" He's asking.
Well, they're right here next to in the report. They're right here under the volume, 9.485,000. So that's where the volume is on this report. Of course, some people, they like to go and do a deeper screen. So if you wanted to do that, you could just use the screener. And this has actually where you could set pre-market volume, minimum relative volume. So if you wanted to see like something that's trading a lot relative to its usual pre-market volume, you could do something like that, where it compares the 20-day average pre-market volume to today's. So like this one's trading 2 million shares in a pre-market. IMB on average, it trades 280,000 in a pre-market. So some people like to use the screener. I just go I just start out with this summary report to kind of see what just pops up really quickly to the top. You could use that one if you want to like dive in deeper or set different types of parameters. So let's take a look at earnings, because I know like we had a couple earnings yesterday that came out. Let's take so these are stocks that are moving and just reported earnings either yesterday after the market closed, today before the market opened. And I think one of them, let me see, was, I know Disney, we talked about Disney this morning, Will, that's up 6.2%. And what was the news there, Will? They had like good news and bad news, right? They had like,
well, yeah, I know it was their first loss in a long time, quarterly loss, but the numbers out of Disney Plus, their new streaming package, were huge. So people are responding to the large number of users of Disney Plus as a long-term bullish.
right, which is what that competes with like Netflix or HBO.
Exactly. Yep, right. It allows the company to stream all their content and other content as well.
So it's not just like on that content. It's not just like just Disney movies, right? It could be any. What do they control? Other.
Well, it's a platform that could process anything, right? Any content. It could compete with YouTube potentially, but they are at this time they are just processing Disney shows and Disney movies, and their library is vast. So, I mean, my kids, the first day it came out, they wanted it, and Verizon actually had an interesting deal that they allowed people to have a year free if you had a Verizon account. So.
Oh, really? Okay. All right. So that's one way to scoop up customers.
It was a big way, obviously.
Well, then obviously, right. So that's on that news, they're up 6.4% at the pre-market on the pre-market. Let's just take a look at historically how they did after they've reported earnings. So these are the last 12 quarters of earnings. So we see here at the open, they tended to gap up. So 82% of the time it was higher, 18% it was lower. Average move was 0.8% at the open. We see here that by the end of the day, towards the close, it tended to drift lower for an average loss of 1.5%. From the open to the high, the average has been 0.9%. From the open to the low, the average has been down 2.4%. Coming out, though, it seems to have done after following the earnings, 1 day, 2 day, 1 week, 2 weeks, it tended to do a little bit better. So slightly bullish bias coming out of earnings. So that's how that tended to do historically. That's the price action analysis around earnings from Disney. Let's take a look. There was another. What was another one somebody mentioned?
WYNN was another one. WYNN.
WYNN.
Let
me see. I don't see that. Here's that one. So that's WYNN right here.
Yep.
Let's take a look. So we've been talking about WYNN because that's obviously that's a casino. So they've been hit kind of hard, but they've reopened. So let's just take a look. What's going on? That's up 1.4% in the pre-market hours. Only 27,000 shares. So doesn't seem like a lot, for a stock that's just reported earnings. Here's the VWAP bar. Most of it traded 73, 75, 73, 89, 15,000 shares. Let's take a look just really quickly what that stock tended to do. So historically, it tended to open up after earnings. So that was on average 9.6%. Today it's only like up 1.4%. After the opening, from the open to the high, on average, it moved up 5.8%. From the open to the low, on average, it moved 5.1%. From the open to the close of the day, it drifted higher more often than not, 58% of the time higher, 42% lower, kind of even for an average gain of 0.2%. So that's really quickly a price action analysis on WYNN. And was there one more, or I could go to the upcoming earnings?
We have a couple more earnings. We have.
Well, these are all earnings. Somebody said.
FSLY, someone was looking at. It's after the market closed today.
Okay, so we'll take a look at that. So these are in the pre-market. These are already what I have set to that they already reported earnings either yesterday or today before the market opened. So these are already reported earnings. We'll take a look at upcoming earnings as well. I'm going to then go next to the upcoming earnings. Well,
yep,
that's good. So let's do that. So let's take a look at upcoming earnings. So let's look at next 2 weeks. I'm going to set this because we're going to analyze it from a perspective of how the option straddles are predicting the move in either direction. So the magnitude of the move after it's reported. So I'm going to set it to at least 10,000 contracts on average per day or more. Now I see here FSLY, that's expect to report today after the market closed. That's looking at right now, the straddle going out yesterday was 16.9%. Let me see what, do you know what that stock is? Well,
I don't.
Leslie? Okay, let me just read real quick. Okay, some cloud platform. In any case, that, since that one popped up at the top, let's just take a look at that. So right now, the straddle is implying a 16.9% move in either direction. That's according to a straddle. You know, you're buying a call, buying a put at the money. That compares to a 4-quarter actual average move in the stock, up or down 17.8%. That's in absolute terms. And a 12-quarter average move, 17.8% as well. So you can see that that's slightly below, almost 1% below that 4-quarter and 12-quarter average. The high move in the last 12 quarters, 45.7%. So that could really move, right? That's a stock that's seen some significant movement. Let me see one that I recognize. Here's Roku. We mentioned Roku. That's today after the market close. That's expecting an up or down move of 11.5%. That compares to a 12-quarter average move of 12.8%. And a, I'm sorry, 4-quarter average move of 12.8%, 12-quarter average move of 20.2%. So slightly below the 4-quarter average actual move and 12-quarter average move. High move, 54.9% in the last 12 quarters. Maybe I'll take a look at that Roku. And Roku's kind of, is that kind of a competitor of the Disney?
It is.
And really, it is a competitor, except Roku doesn't create content, right? How would you describe them? They're more like a...
They're like a streamer. I mean, they're not a content creator. They're content...
It's like for smart TVs. I actually have a Roku in one of my TVs. I think it's like I bought one in a smart TV, and I think Roku's one of the.
Well, it's definitely had a good run in this pandemic. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I think they've actually emailed me. They're starting up. I think you could even like create a Roku channel, almost like a YouTube channel. So that'll be interesting. But so that's coming up today after the market close. We'll see how that does. Let me just really quickly scan to see if any other ones kind of stick out. You know, I'm just gonna look for like ones that are anticipating bigger moves. Here's that's Z. What's that? Zillow. That's coming out tomorrow after market close. So let's see that right now it's expecting 11.6% move according to the straddle as of close of yesterday. That compares to a 4-quarter average move of 13.4% and a 12-quarter average move of 10.7%. So you could see a little, that's a little bit below the 4-quarter average, and even the 12-quarter average high move, 26.9% in the last 12 quarters. Let's take a look.
Jake actually just mentioned for all those Roku watchers that they're looking to strike a bigger deal with manufacturers, and if they're able to do that, that could be super positive for Roku. So
I think that they depend on like television manufacturers using them as their smart TV, right? So basically it's kind of like it's like Microsoft operating system in a computer.
There you go.
I think that's how they work, right? So it's to make your TV smart. No, Jake, but that would be a big deal.
Jake says you're 100% correct, Dimitri.
All right. Thank you, Jake. Yes, Jake, I know he does a lot of research on a lot of these companies. So he's a good resource, but that's we'll see. And I think actually I read somebody took a big stake in Roku. I think it might've been Ken Griffith, maybe from Citadel. I'm not sure about, but I remember it was like, I think it was even before that like COVID crisis hit, but there was like a big move up, and I think somebody took a big stake in that stock. It might have been like the owner of Citadel. Actually, let me take a look. Let's go to Roku right now. Let me just see if I could see that in the insider trades. Let's see if it pops up in here. So far I only see sell. All right, so maybe it didn't. Let me see. Yeah. All right, I thought I read that somewhere.
Can you click on the top and adjust by buy and sell on that insider trades?
Yeah, but these are all ordered at,
by date,
you know, from more recent. Yeah, so like this is going up to April 24th. I thought it was more recent. You know, let me just take a look. But you know, I see just sell orders here, so nothing. Let me see.
That doesn't make me feel too bullish.
Yeah, well, but the stock has been, you know.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Stock has been doing pretty
What are
well.
Are there any ideas showing up in the trade cards in Roku?
Let me just take a look. So no, nothing. Oh, there we go. So your bull call spread 175, 170 bull call spread. So buying the 170 call, selling the 175. That has 55% edge, 64% historical win rate. You know, and that's using also, I think that's using the earnings analysis, right? So they're coming up with earnings. So that's how that look. Got the debit iron condor. Let me see all of them. So there are a bunch, right? There are a bunch. Here's a bull put spread out of the money, 160, or where's that stock? That's at the money. Here's one out of the money, 155, 150 put spread. So, you know, a bunch of, you know, trade idea cards coming out there. And if you want to read the analysis, you can just like hit on that report. Let's take a look at, since it's coming up with earnings, let's just see how this stock has reacted to earnings. So these are from the movement perspective, these bars here, that's what the expected move was up or down according to the straddle. So that's what these bars are over here for each of these quarters. And the actual move, red, you know, when it was down, green when it was up. So we could see here that like a lot of, you know, these in the green have broke to the upside above what the straddle was expecting. So we see here that August 7th, it was up 20.9% compared to an expected move of 14.5% up or down. Here's another one up 28%, you know, up 25%. So it did look like even to the downside, it broke a couple times, but you know, more often to the upside than downside. And here we see that Roku, it overestimated the move 27% of the time. So it underestimated a lot of the time. And you could see that the average of the last 12 quarters, the implied moves was 14.4% up or down versus an actual absolute average move of 20%, 20.2%. So here looks like if you're long the straddles, on average, you did pretty good. And that's what this is telling us here. Last 12 quarters, being long the straddle was a winner 67% of the time for an average gain of 23%. Long strangle, that was also winner 67% of the time for an average gain of 39%. So that's from a historical look. Let me just see the implied volatility, what that did. So here we're looking at a 30-day constant maturity. So keep in mind, this isn't looking at the near-term month. It's looking for a month that's at least, that's 30 days, trading days to go. Now, on average, the implied volatility from the day before earnings to the day after earnings was down 27%. So you can see day before, the average implied volatility on that 30-day constant maturity was 88.6. Day after, it was 65.4. 5 days later, 63.8. And this is how we're looking today. This is the average. This is the average 2 days. For 2 days going into earnings, the average was 86.2. Today we're seeing 75.9. The the high 106.9, low 75.9. So this is on the low range of the last 12 quarters. So that's how we're looking as of yesterday's close in Roku. So we'll see what happens, but it's been around. I'm just going to take a look how that performed. Let's just take a look at the trading stats here. So here it is. In the last 6 months, it was up 27% versus the market up 1.2%. Can you believe the market's up 1.2%, Will, in the last 6 months?
It's absolutely
3
crazy.
months. Yeah.
Mind blown.
Yeah. Last 3 months, we see that's up 33.9% versus markets performance 16.9%. 1 month, you know, it's actually done pretty good just in the last month alone, up 29.4%. Markets up 5.7% in that same period. So been doing pretty good. We'll see how, you know, how it performs after the market or if it's already priced in. Well, since I'm going to leave some room for questions right now. If you have some, otherwise I'll just move on to a different report.
Yeah, well, I mean, more earnings questions or more
whatever you have in there.
Yep. GNRC was brought up by Brian Bolin. It's Generac. It makes the generators we were talking about earlier.
Okay.
He wanted to see if there was any seasonality to it. Well, actually, okay. I wanted to see that. He just brought up the stock.
So this is GNRC. I don't really know this stock, but look, it's right now it's up in a pre-market, almost 1% at 166.03. That's, you know, that's above that the 52-week high already. Let's take a look at how it's been doing recently. So here in the last 3 months, we see that's up 74%. Last 2 weeks alone, it's up 20%, 20.9%. That's compared to the overall market up 1.6% in that same time period. We see here that its relative strength here is really good. So this is taking its average daily return divided by its average daily standard deviation to get this ratio. So we compare that to the SPY. So in the last 90 days, that's been good. Last 30 days, it's, you know, been stellar. Let's see, last 15 days, it's been really good. So shown a lot of strength there in GNRC. I think the question was, take a look at that seasonality. So I'm just looking at it from the perspective of, you know, calendar month, or we're going into August. So in August, you see 54% of the time in the last 10 years, it's been higher, 45.5% lower. So it's a kind of 50-50 average gain 0.1%. Really, July here sticks out, up 6.1% on average, 63% of the time higher, 36.4% lower. Next one I see here is October. Looks like October and November does pretty well. October up 80% of the time in the last 10 years for an average gain of 13.3%. So here you have the seasonality breakdown here. So that's an interesting story. I didn't even know about this GNRC.
Well, it tends to be a big stock during the hurricane season. Yeah. I mean, they constantly run out of generators whenever there's a hurricane that comes up the East Coast.
And then it looks like what people stock up around here as well, October, November. So that's the historical seasonality look by calendar month in GNRC. Was there a different question for that GNRC?
No,
or
that was it. That was it.
Okay. Yeah. What
Jake
was
Jake had a question about, he asked, when do we get the IV crush in the column? Oh, he's asking about, he wants to see IV crush in the column on earnings. I'm giving that out, Jake, because Jake has brought a bunch of questions today. He's just asking about the IV crush. He wants to see it in the columns on the earnings page. So
the which earnings? Like the upcoming earnings?
Yeah. When he's looking, when do we get the IV crush in the columns on earnings so we can sort easy without having to look at each stock? So when he sees all the earnings, he wants to see the potential IV crush or what's happening.
Oh, like an IV crush. Oh, like in this report.
Yeah.
Like in the upcoming 2 weeks. Okay, I'll make a note of that. See if that's something we could add. Maybe we'll have to like create a new
And
tab.
he has asked every day, and it's in the public forum, so I might as well tell it. He wants to know what secret things Dimitri is working on for the platform. That's what Jake does. And he says it every day, so I figured I'd mention it.
Secret thing, yeah. So the upcoming things that right now, well, it's gonna, we're working with a company helping us design things better, because a lot of people wanted to have a more modern look, so we're doing that. So that might come out soon. We're still working on the design and making it look like more modern, a little bit sleeker and cleaner, because we're not designers, right? We're kind of like traders, and all of our developers and programmers, we came from the perspective that we just created machines to help us trade. We never dealt with design. So we're working on that. I'm working on the fundamentals to make relative values, relative comparison, like valuation models. So that is something that I'm working on right now. That's not out there. Let me think here. You know, because I always have like 4 or 5 projects going at the same time.
You don't have to give him everything. Jake's always going to have questions like that. He's a man who wants a lot of different functionality within the system. So
yeah, working on a lot of like option stuff, calendar spreads. I'm working on diagonal spreads. Working on let me see, screeners, more screeners for options trades, like with notional. So a couple, you know, we have a bunch of different things kind of going on at the same time. We're working with some vendors on ETF data as well.
Awesome. Well, listen, everyone on YouTube, we're missing Jake today because we're having I don't know if it's the storm. We're having issues with YouTube. Things seem to be moving slow. Jake had to come over to the Zoom meeting, but Jake says he's using, just so everyone on YouTube knows, he uses the Chameleon 5 to 8 hours every day. Now for those who don't know Jake, he lives overseas in Kuala Lumpur. So he trades after his workday into the early morning. So he's a big user of the Chameleon data, and it certainly trades. So
and Jake is great. He gives us a lot of good suggestions, good tips. So so thank you, Jake, for sure.
We had one last person wanted to look at Ford. I don't know if you can get that.
Ford, sure. From what perspective? Like earnings?
He just threw out, looking at Ford, maybe if there are opportunities in the trade cards or.
Yeah. So here's Ford. Like, I mean, all I see here right now, at least coming out from yesterday, option order flow sentiment, that looked bullish. Big money stock flow, which we look at like large stock trades and how they're progressing throughout the day, that looked bullish. Right now, fear gauge moderate. Let me take a look from just its relative strength. So we see here in the last 2 weeks, it's outperformed the market, 2.7% versus 1.6% move in the market. 1 month, it's outperformed. 3 months, definitely, did really well, outperformed that market in a 3-month period. Relative strength, still not great if we compare the average return on a daily basis to the average volatility you're taking on. So that's kind of from Ford. I don't see, the next earnings is coming up in October. Has a nice yield. Does Ford actually have electrical? Are they working on something to compete with a Tesla?
They all are. Yep.
They all are.
Yeah.
General Motors probably is. So they're all. Let's see if they come up with anything interesting, to compete in that electrical vehicle market. Also, did you ever hear of like the hydrogen? What are those? They're creating like hydrogen.
Hydrogen engines.
Yeah. Like they're run on. I don't know. Did you ever hear like it's hydrogen. They don't produce pollution. Like the waste is like something like water. So that could be an interesting technology. I don't know if General Motors is working on it. Maybe Ford is working on it.
Well, he's also Jake says Nikola is working on it too, which has been a stock that has been a high runner and very volatile stock lately.
What's the symbol on that?
Let me just, I think it's NIK. NKLA.
So that's so here it is, 33.95. Let me see. So that's a stock that's more recent. Is that correct? Like that one?
Yeah.
Let me just pull up
That
the
Jake
chart.
says $6,000 in revenue, 89 million in losses.
Oh. Well, at some like that sounded like Uber as well, right? Like Uber did something like that with yeah. So right now it's just been, it looks like it just recently went public, went way up, and now it's just kind of coming back down. You know, maybe it leveled off here. I don't know. $33.95 in the pre-market, so it's down 12.6% in the pre-market hours.
All right. Well, Dima, it's been another wonderful 45 minutes of a pre-market show. The bell's about to go off. Everyone, thanks for joining us. We will be on tomorrow morning, and have a great trading day. Any last words, D?
No, everybody, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. We appreciate your support. You know, we love you guys, and we hope you do. You know, you guys have a great trading day. And we'll see you tomorrow.
Stay safe, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.